Start here. Investing for your grandchildren and the kids that we love so much. A gift idea that lasts a lifetime. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Start Here, the very special mini-series within Sugar Mama's Fire Play where I answer your real-life money questions with practical, empowering steps to help you finally get started. Today's question comes from a proud grandmother, and I absolutely loved reading this one. She wrote, "Hi Canna, I'm a proud grandmother of a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and twins on the way. Everything is so expensive, and I'd love to be able to give them a bit of a head start. Can you help me get started with investing for them? I was thinking of doing something like your $1,000 project where I invest $1,000 for each of them. But what do I need to do to get started?" All right. Firstly, can I just say that this is such a generous and thoughtful question, and you're not alone. I was actually on Channel 9's The Today Show talking about this exact trend. And there was also a brilliant article in The Australian, I think it was, about grandparents increasingly choosing investment gifts over the physical plastic toys, particularly around Christmas time and even birthdays. And honestly, I think this is one of the most powerful and meaningful gifts you can give any child. And it doesn't just have to be for a grandchild. It could be for your own child, it could be for a niece, a nephew, or even more like what I did. I did this for my own goddaughter, Lottie. And I did this when she was actually christened, and I was formally made her godmother. It was a really special, proud moment. And when you do this, you're actually giving them something really valuable, but something also really priceless, and that is the belief in their future and time. And when we combine these two things together, it's incredibly powerful. So to start, let's talk about why so many grandparents are actually doing this and why it's actually becoming increasingly popular. Now, obviously, as we all know, everything is so expensive right now. Housing, education, travel, even if you're just starting out is your adult life. Many grandparents can see that, and they can see that their grandchildren are going to need a little bit more support than perhaps the previous generations. But this is definitely not about spoiling kids or handing them money on a silver platter. It's about giving them time, it's about giving them opportunity, and it's about giving them some confidence and faith. And when you're investing for your grandchild or for any child, it's a way of saying, I believe in your future, even if you're not old enough yet to really understand that. And there are so many powerful benefits for investing for children. Obviously, there's the financial one because you've got compounding interest working over decades, which is incredibly powerful and exciting. Then, of course, there's the environmental benefits, less plastic toys, less landfill and wastage, and more intentional gifting. And then there's the emotional one. This is a really beautiful bond across generations. And then there's the educational side, financial literacy. It really does open up the door to teach and talk about money and the skills needed to be able to create financial freedom. So this is not just about money, it's actually about a legacy. Now, when it comes to that money, at the end of the day, when they turn 18 or say turn age 21, what could this money be used for that day, that one special day? And this is where it gets really exciting because you can see the potential as to what you could be handing over. When people hear investing for kids, they sometimes think it's only for one thing, and that is like a deposit on a home. But the thing is, the beauty of investing early is really the flexibility and the choice. This money could help fund educational expenses like additional training or maybe even a university degree or master's. It could help pay for travel and adventure and all those beautiful life experiences that add so much richness to our lives, particularly young adults. It could also help fund starting up a small business. It could help pay for a first car or maybe even help be the rental bond if they're moving out of home. And of course, yes, it might possibly be, if you invest wisely over a long period of time, this could be a future property deposit. And because children have time on their side, the money can actually be invested a lot more aggressively early on, giving it the biggest and best opportunity to grow. And time is one of the biggest gifts right here that children have, and grandchildren particularly have got plenty of it, particularly if you're thinking of holding on to this money until they turn 18 or 21. So let's now move on to the practical steps of investing for your grandchildren or pretty much any child. So the first step is choosing the right investment structure. Now, this is where we need to get really practical and how do you actually do this? Well, the first thing is choosing an investment platform that actually allows you to invest for children. So, not product advice at all, but a starting place for you to do your own research. So, Stockpot offer this, ComSec, Vanguard as well, and I believe BetaShares are just a few examples which allow you to open up an account as trustee for the child or as what some of them call a minor trust account. So you need to look at the way that it's set up, and you want to make sure that you set it up this particular way if you want to be able to gift it to them when they turn 18 with the opportunity to potentially minimize capital gains tax. So when it's written as trustee, it would be, your name, say Canna Campbell as trustee, for example, for Rocco, my son. So the structure works in very simple terms. You, or as the grandparent, you control the account. You control the investment decisions, and the investments are held for the child's benefit, not for yours. However, when you set it up like this, the income is taxed at your marginal tax rate. And when the child turns 18, the investments can then be transferred to them without triggering capital gains tax. Now, I have had some clients do this for their children, and their children have actually asked them to keep holding on until age 21 because they didn't feel like they were ready and mature enough to handle their new investment portfolios. So you don't have to necessarily turn it over at age 18, but you just need to be aware of the fact that when you've done it in this structure correctly, you are minimizing triggering capital gains tax. But of course, when in doubt, always go and speak to your accountant. And it's very clean, simple structure for the long term when it comes to investing in kids. And for the record, that is exactly how I have invested for each of my 3 children. It is set up as Canna Campbell as trustee for Apple, Canna Campbell as trustee for Tiger Tilly, Canna Campbell as trustee for Rocco. It's a long-term structure that just, for me, suits my needs. But there are other options to get advice, and there are other app platforms that offer similar setups. So the key is asking, can I invest as a trustee for my child, and what happens at age 18? And that should help you narrow down which is the best investment platform for the child. The next step is choosing a long-term investment mix. So this is really about your investment choice because this is a long-term investment strategy. We're talking 15 to maybe even 20 years. The general rule of thumb or the general guidance is to focus on high growth assets such as Australian shares, international shares, and listed property. And yes, these assets are volatile in the short to medium term. Markets naturally and normally go up and down. And there are going to be headlines, there are going to be corrections, there are going to be crashes. But you need to keep focus on the big picture, which is the long-term picture. So try not to get caught up in the noise and try not to react to the noise. But, over long periods of time, growth assets, like the ones I've just mentioned, have historically delivered far more superior outcomes. And this is where ETFs and listed investment companies are a brilliant investment tool for you to seriously consider when you're looking at your money that you've got for them and where you want to invest, because an ETF and a listed investment company provides instant diversification. You've also got exposure across, say, hundreds of companies in different sectors and industries and sometimes even different countries. It's also, of course, very cost effective when you think about all the investment decisions they're doing for you and all the admin behind the scenes, and it makes it a lot easier to manage, particularly when you take into consideration you've got to declare this in your income tax. And just so you know, when you're looking at these different ETFs and listed investment companies, you don't need dozens of them. You may even just need one or just a couple. You just need to make sure that whatever you decide to do, you've done it thoughtfully and you're looking at a long-term approach. And most importantly, if you're looking at doing this for your children or grandchildren, please know this is a long-term buy and hold strategy. You're not looking to trade for your grandchildren. You're not looking at tinkering the portfolio if you're bored. You're letting compounding growth and interest and reinvestment do the heavy lifting for you and the child. So very much set and forget, walk away, and let compounding interest do its magic for you. The next step, step 3, is to turn on the dividend reinvestment plan. Now, this is one of the most important steps and one that so many people forget. It's turning on the dividend reinvestment options. This means that any income, like dividends from the portfolio, is automatically reinvested back into the portfolio, which helps obviously accelerate the compounding effects. And it means that you will have more units in the portfolio, because instead of taking that dividend and spending it, you're actually buying more shares. And this is really where the magic happens. When kids are young, they don't really need that income. Their living expenses are typically covered for by their parents. So this is a really good way of just ramping up the portfolio and reinvest everything. This is the fuel for growth. And this is exactly how the $1,000 project works. It's all about long-term, buy and hold, reinvest everything, and consistently add when you can. And yes, all of my children's investment portfolios, all the dividends are automatically reinvested. I've ticked that box. And same with my goddaughter as well. Next step 4, is to make it a tradition. Now, this is the beautiful part, and the part that I think is so empowering. Instead of just making this a once-off event, just this one Christmas, maybe talk about this becoming a family tradition. For example, adding money every single Christmas. Not just this coming Christmas or next Christmas, but do it every single Christmas, or perhaps every single birthday. Even encouraging other family members, if they want to and if they can comfortably afford to, contribute to, instead of buying another toy that often gets forgotten about 3 weeks later. As the children grow, in an age-appropriate way, of course, show them what their portfolio is worth, show how it's tracking, the dividends, how it works, the reinvestment, even the tax, if they're old enough to understand that concept, how delayed gratification works. Compare it, how it was performed last year. Even if it underperformed and went backwards, show them, because that's normal and natural. That's nothing to be upset about or ashamed. And in fact, you can explain to them the fact that market went back, the portfolio went down, but we were able to buy more shares in that particular stock or listed investment company or ETF at a discounted price. These are really valuable lessons that you're planting powerful seeds that are really going to help them further down the track when it comes to them managing their own money. They're not going to be intimidated. They're going to be empowered. They're going to be excited, and they're going to have some great education and knowledge and also a bit of experience behind them. And again, a reminder, you're not just giving them money. You're teaching them the importance of patience, delayed gratification, how money grows, how money works for you, what passive income is and how it really does add value in someone's life. And that wealth is actually built slowly and steadily, with consistency. It doesn't just happen overnight. And that's education done in action. And that is, I think, absolutely priceless and invaluable. So what are the numbers that we're talking about here? Is it $2,000 investment portfolio we're building here, or a $10,000 investment portfolio? Well, let's work with the example that this particular listener has given me. If this listener or yourself invested $1,000 today and then invested, say, $1,000 every single year, over the period of 18 years, assuming a 4% per annum capital growth, a 4% income per annum, and the dividend growing, that is the income growing by 4% each year, that portfolio could be worth $47,300 by age 18, assuming they do this, when they're born, for example, with the twins. And that could be paying an annual passive income of approximately $1,680 per annum. Now, that's not because of luck. That's because of the time in the market, being consistent, and of course, compounding. And remember, this is just one example. The real value is what it enables for the child. You could do this more often. You could do this with larger amounts of money as your financial situation changes. It really boils down to what you can safely and comfortably afford. So as I wrap up today's episode, I want to finish with this. Investing for your grandchild or a child that you absolutely love and adore is one of the most loving, forward-thinking things that you could ever do for them. It says, I'm thinking about your future. I believe in you. I have faith in you. I want you to start a life with confidence and empowerment. And the ripple effect of this, financially, emotionally, educationally, can last generations. You're not just giving them money, you're giving them belief, opportunity, and knowledge. And that is exactly how wealth is truly passed down from generation to generation, and how we break the poverty cycle. Now, if this episode resonated with you, can you please share it with another grandparent or a friend or a family member who might be wondering how they might help? In fact, if you've got young children and parents are asking you what they should be buying for them for their birthday or anniversaries or any sort of special activity like Christmas, send them this episode. Give them a very subtle hint, because this is something that's really beneficial for all the family members. And of course, if you have any questions that you would like answered in a future Start Here episode, I have popped my email address and contact details in the podcast notes below. All right, I'll see you next Monday morning on Sugar Mama's Fire Play. Thank you everyone for listening, and please take a moment to leave me a rating and review.